Carpenter Cougars, just listen for a moment. Isn't that beautiful? That music was actually written by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, one of the most famous composers in the world. And it was a little night music. It was music meant to be played to relax and just enjoy the beauty of the evening. And it was all played by members of the string family. So today we're going to take a look at these beautiful instruments. Now, I'm a little bit limited and I apologize, but some of my other string instruments like my violin and my guitar are at school and I can't get to them. So I'm going to do my best today to show you and let you hear these beautiful instruments. Before we do that, let's turn to our string family wrap, which you already have. And would you wrap after me, and then we'll do it to music. So here we go. I'm going first. String instruments you strum, pluck, or bow. Go. String instruments you strum, pluck, or bow. My turn. Don't forget the harp, it's the biggest you know. Don't forget the harp, it's the biggest you know. Violin, viola, cello, and bass. Go. Violin, viola, cello, and bass. My turn. Have 4 strings, each played with vigor and grace. Have 4 strings, each played with vigor and grace. Good. Now there's 2 words we have to explain. On the 3rd line, it looks like at the end, cello and B-A-S-S, which in American English would be bass. But that's a fish. I don't want any fish in my music classroom. So we have to pronounce it the way the Italians do, bass. And the word bass in Italian means, you got it, low. And then the other word is on line 4, vigor. We talked about this last week. It means strength. So even though you have to be graceful to play a string instrument, it does require quite a bit of strength. All right, let's see if we can wrap this together once and then we'll put it with the music. 1, 2, ready, wrap. String instruments you strum, pluck, or bow. Don't forget the harp, it's the biggest you know. Violin, viola, cello, and bass. Have 4 strings, each played with vigor and grace. All right, are you ready to wrap this? We're going to start at the beginning because you already know that part. So here we go. Meet the symphony wrap. Beethoven's 5th Symphony. 1, 2, ready, go.
Come on, let's meet the 4 families that make up the members of a symphony. Brass, woodwinds, percussion, and strings, working together, making music's their thing.
I think that was great. Let's try it one more time. 1, 2, ready, go.
Come on, let's meet the 4 families that make up the members of a symphony. Brass, woodwinds, percussion, and strings, working together, making music's their thing.
Awesome. Now, I just need to move the music forward a little bit, and you will need the string part that we just learned. Give me a moment. This is a little tricky here. Almost there. Almost there. And at the beginning, before we wrap, you're actually going to hear some more music from Mozart's Eine kleine Nachtmusik, a little night music. You're going to hear the very beginning of it. So get ready to wrap.
instruments you strum, pluck, or bow. Don't forget the harp, it's the biggest piano. Violin, viola, cello, and bass have 4 strings, each played with vigor and grace.
Awesome. Let's do that one more time, and then we'll move on. You guys are doing a great job. Okay. Again, a little bit more of Mozart's beautiful music. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, rock.
String instruments you strum, pluck, or bow. Don't forget the harp, it's the biggest piano. Violin, viola, cello, and bass have 4 strings, each played with vigor and grace.
Awesome job, everybody. Give yourselves a little bit of applause. Okay, now let's find out a little bit more about each of these amazing string instruments. Up here, I actually have a drawing of what a real orchestra looks like. For example, if you went downtown to our Walt Disney Concert Hall and you got to watch a performance by our own LA Philharmonic, you would see the musicians sitting pretty much in this order. Now, right here is the first violins. There are usually at least 16 of them. And then next to them are the second violins. Same instrument, they just play different music. And in the second violin section, there are about 14 of them, which means in the violin section alone, that's 30 players. That's a big part of the orchestra. No wonder the violin is called the king of the orchestra. Over here, a little bit bigger and a little bit lower, are the violas. The violas, there are usually at least 10 of them, and they sit right here. Next to them, the cellos. Cellos are an instrument that is about this tall, and the cellos, you have to sit down to play a cello. Take a look at this picture. The cello is the only one of the string instruments that you actually have to be in a chair in order to play. The cello. And finally, the great, big, huge string bass. Boys and girls, that string bass is 6 feet tall. It's taller than Mrs. Taweel. They're right here. You can either stand to play them, or you can sit on a high stool, but there are about 8 string basses in every big orchestra. And if you add up the violins, the violas, the cellos, and the basses, you get anywhere from 58 to 60 string instruments in an orchestra. That's a lot. This is a very powerful, popular group of instruments. Now, let's learn a little bit more about them individually. The violin. It's the smallest. So do you think it will play the highest or the lowest notes? You're right. Smallest, highest notes. It's the smallest. You can tuck the violin under your chin. You can walk around and play it, or you could sit down. It's a very versatile instrument. Its nickname is the fiddle. So if you hear fiddle or violin, they're actually talking about the same instrument. A little bit bigger and a little bit lower. Viola. Can everybody pronounce that? Viola? Some people try to call it a viola, but it's really pronounced viola. I'm sorry, my dog is complaining that she can't go outside right now. Next, the cello. And we already took a look at the cello. Kahlua. Come here. Come here. Come here. Say hi to the second graders. Okay? Good girl. Now will you go lie down under the table, please? Come on, go lay down. Go on. Good girl. Good girl. Drop. Thank you. The cello. The cello that you have to sit down to play. Next, we have, of course, the great, big, huge string bass. 6 feet tall. It's obviously going to play the highest or the lowest notes of the family. I think you got it right. Definitely plays the lowest notes because it's so big. Now, what's really fun about these instruments is they have parts that are actually named to match our body parts. So watch this. They all have this long neck, just like we have a neck. And then on your body, what does your neck attach to? They're kind of rounded. They hold your arms. If you said shoulders, you're right. They have shoulders. Next, the front of the instrument right here is jokingly called the belly. The belly of the string instrument. And right here, where it sort of nicks in, that's the waist. Like you have a waist above your hips on your body. And then if I turn this instrument around, it would have a back, just like we have a back. So once more, real quickly, neck, shoulders, waist, belly, back. And one more thing to point out, string instruments, and I'll use this because you can see it better. String instruments have these beautiful decorative holes on the front of them. Now the one on this side kind of looks like a fancy F, and that's exactly where they get their name. They are called F holes. And the reason for that is as you play them, the sound vibrates inside the body, but it has to get out somehow. So guess where all the sound from the instrument comes out? You got it. Comes right out through these beautiful F holes. So, now, no talk about the string instruments would be complete without something that the violin, viola, cello, and bass use. The harp can't use what I'm about to show you, but the other 4 can, and it's called a bow. Now, the reason it's called a bow is because a very long time ago, the bow actually looked like a bow that you would shoot an arrow from. But that was pretty awkward to carry around. It was hard. So somebody, and again, we don't know who, but somebody figured out that you could make the bow thinner and longer and it would still work perfectly. Now, the bow has some interesting things about it. First of all, this is called the bow stick, and it's completely made out of wood because we know that a lot of our musical instruments love wood because it helps make the sound better and longer. This little point right here is called the tip of the bow. And sometimes you'll even see string players take their bow and use the tip to point to something in their music. You can use it for more than one thing. The next part down here is called the nut. Not like one you could eat, but it's a nut. And it's used to tighten the next part of our bow. This is the most important part of the bow. This is called the bow hair. And boys and girls, it is made of strands of a special type of horsetail hair. Now, before you get upset, it doesn't hurt the horse. Most horsetail hair actually comes from horses who are bred in Canada, exactly for their beautiful long white tail hair. And for the horses, you just give them a little haircut, doesn't hurt at all, and then send them out to eat more grass and grow some more tail hair. But a bundle of that special horsetail hair, which would be about this big, a bundle of that horsetail hair can cost up to $10,000. That's right. It's so special and expensive. And for that reason, if you ever play a string instrument, you learn never to touch the string, the bowstring hair. And finally, this part of the bow, which is where you put your fingers. I always find this very funny. It's called the frog. It doesn't look like a frog. It doesn't act like a frog. It doesn't sound like a frog, but it's called the frog. And that's where you put your thumb and your other fingers on the other side, and that's how you hold the bow. Now, the secret to the bow working is, again, that horsetail hair. You can't see it just looking at it with your eyes, but if we could borrow a microscope from Mrs. Belatesh in the science lab, you would see that each horsetail hair actually has little sharp ridges on it. And when you pull that horsetail hair across the strings, the ridges actually catch on the strings, and that's what makes them vibrate back and forth. So that's why the horsetail hair is so important to the bow. All right, now we're going to take a moment and finish up the chart that we started with the harp. And I'm going to sit down for this part. So just a little quick review. Sentence 1 said, instruments in this family are made of strings and wood. Now, number 2, you play most string instruments by, what do we call the action that I did with my fingers on the harp? If you said plucking, you're exactly right. I will spell that for you. Are you ready? P-L-U-C-K-I-N-G. Plucking. Check your spelling one more time. P-L-U-C-K-I-N-G. Now, the second part, the other way to play a string instrument, is the one that the violin, viola, cello, and bass use, and you use this. If you said bowing, you're correct. Now, the interesting thing about the word bow is that it's spelled B-O-W. That's a homograph because you can either pronounce it bow, B-O-W, bow, like you would do on an instrument, or B-O-W, bow, like you would take a bow. But they have different pronunciations and meaning. So let me spell the word bowing for you. Are you ready? B-O-W-I-N-G. Bowing. Let's make sure that you've got that. Check your work. Ready? B-O-W-I-N-G. So plucking and bowing are the two main ways to play a string instrument. Of course, in our rap, we also talked about strum. You strum the harp. You can strum a guitar. So there really are 3 ways, but the majority, the most instruments use either the plucking or the bowing. Now, number 3 we already answered, but it's a good thing to review. When you play a string instrument, the strings, little tiny word, starts with an M, ends with an E. Did you write move? That's exactly it. And then, because we're all great musical scientists, number 4 says, this movement is called vibration. V-I-B-R-A-T-I-O-N. Vibration. Now, the last sentence that we have to answer is, string instruments have body parts that are like human body parts. So I'm going to go through and point again to some of the string body parts. See if you can say them out loud, and then you can pick your favorite too. This part, long and slender. This part you have on your body. This part. This part right here. Or you could turn it around and face the... Okay, so pick 2 of your favorites of that, and please write them down on sentence 5, and just do your best with spelling. We all know the Wonders rules, and I think you can use them for these answers. Finally, before we go, boys and girls, I thought it might be fun for you to get to do a dot the dot and draw a string bass. So I've shown you where number 1 is, and you just have to continue all the dots all around. And there are some other string instruments on here too, of course, as well as our bow. So when you have a moment after this lesson, you might want to finish that up. It's kind of fun to do a dot by dot and end up with a picture. So my friends, that concludes today's string lesson. And before we sign off, let's wrap our string part one more time. So make sure you're looking at page 5. And again, we're going to hear a little bit of beautiful string music to start before we sing. And here we go.
String instruments you strum, pluck, or bow. Don't forget the harp, it's the biggest you know. Violin, viola, cello, and bass have 4 strings each, played with vigor and grace.
Great job, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful, magical, musical week. Stay safe, and I'll see you again next week with something very, very special. Bye.